The Scary Crow is a scary story about a farmer who builds the scariest and most hideous of all scary crows to take care of his farm. There was an old farmer in Arizona who owned the best farm in the area. Everybody said his crops were the best and people come from all over to buy their goods from him. Whenever people asked him how he was able to grow such good quality crops, the old farmer would say it was all down to his scarecrow. "What old scarecrow is the one I have to think," said the farmer. "He makes sure no crows or critters or pests come near my crops." The old farmer had built the scarecrow himself, and it was a fearsome sight. He spent moments working on it to make it as scary as possible. He knew how important it was to keep pests away from his crops. So he gave it arms that stretched out about 6 feet and big long legs what made it as tall as a tree. But the scariest thing about this scarecrow was its head. The farmer carried it himself out of a huge pumpkin. He spent countless days and nights perfecting his design until it was perfect. The scarecrow's face and hair was so grotesque and ugly that even he was something scary to look at it. But it was very effective, scaring away every rodent and bird that ventured near. The night boring farm was owned by 2 young men who were brothers named Josh and Garl. They were lazy and never did much work around the farm, which resulted in their crops being bad. They were jealous of the old farmers, such as and were plotting against him. If they could drive him out of the business, they could take over his farm and make more money. So one night the brothers decided to sneak onto the old farmer's land. They stole his prized scarecrow and brought it back to their own house, where they stuffed it and into an old closet, so nobody would ever find it. The next day the farmer woke up to find his hideous scarecrow missing and all his crops being eaten by rats and crows. He felt to hit knees and cried, knowing what his farm would soon be out of business. Meanwhile, the brothers, Josh and Garl, were watching from their own property and couldn't help laughing out loud when we saw the old man's tears of grief. Hearing the laughter, the old farmer came over and asked whether they knew what happened to his scarecrow. The brothers looked at him right in the eye and said they had no idea where his precious scarecrow might be. "But you go out of business and have to sell my farm if I can't find my scarecrow," said the farmer. George just laughed in his face, saying, "Well, just your touch luck, isn't it?" "Sucks to be you," giggled Gerald. The old farmer walked slowly back to his house, his head hanging down and defeated and depressing. One night as Josh and Harold had trouble sleeping, not because we felt any remorse, but because they couldn't get the image of the scarecrow's horrible twisted face out of their minds. They did say they would never be able to sleep as long as that ugly pumpkin head was in their house. So we got up and dragged the scarecrow out of the closet. Garl took a baseball bat and smashed the scarecrow head to pieces, until what was left was little bits of pumpkin strewn around the floor. The brothers swept up the pumpkin head, ashes and threw them in the trash when we went back to bed and very soon fast asleep, having put all doubts of the disgusting scarecrow face out of their heads. Sometime after midnight, Josh and Garl were awoken by the sounds of a scratching and clawing at their bedroom door. "Did you forget to put the dog out?" asked Garl sleepily. "We don't have a dog," stammered Josh. Suddenly the bedroom door burst open and a solitary long strap, arms naked in through the opening. When a second arm thrashed around, followed by 2 long stick legs. The 2 brothers were frozen in fear and could only look with horror as the headless scarecrow body rose up on its long stick legs, and its long arms reached out for them in the darkness. Garl left cold, seen with straw claw, closely around his ankle and screaming as loud as he could. He begged his brother Josh to help him. But Josh was already running out of the bedroom. Fleeing in terror, he ran down the hallway, crashed towards the front door, and out onto the moonlit road. He ran as fast as his legs could carry him, panting and at the top of his voice. As he passed his neighbor's house, he saw the old farmer standing at his gate. In the moonlight, he could see the farmer just staring at him with a strange smile on his face. Josh kept running, his bare feet slapping against the rough gravel road. I glanced back over his shoulder and saw something was carrying him to his very soul. He saw a scarecrow running along the road close behind him. It was gaining on him, coming closer and closer. And what wasn't all he saw? He noticed what the scarecrow had. A brand new head, and it looked a lot like Garl. The story really happened to me. It happened a long time ago. I was just a kid. When my family and I lived in a small village, where there were only 2 streets, a church, a small river, and a forest nearby. It took an hour to ride to the nearest settlement with a post office and a store. A godforsaken village what I loved very much. I don't remember my childhood well, but with days forever etched into my memory. The street my strongly believing relatives. I did not go to church, for which I constantly heard threats from my grandmother. What demons would did save me, what I will not get to heaven. What evil spirits would ruin similar crosses, which I only mocked. Where there was some kind of church holiday what day. With streets very deserted, we entered small population was at church service. I, as I often did not wait for the next grandmother's threats, and ran off into the forest to pick berries. I don't know how much time possibly I was wandering throughout the forest, but my basket remained empty. I am completely already disbanded. I was upset when I saw the mushroom picket. He asked me why there was no smile on my face, to which I showed him an empty basket. Is it a problem? Where is a wall glad with strawberries? Not far away. Follow me, I'll show you. The man said and slapped me on my shoulder. We welcomed to eat a bite, and I saw it seemed 100 bushes bending to the ground under the weight for 8 berries. I couldn't believe me ears, as I was almost sure that I had already passed here today. Putting aside me doubts, I began to feel the basket and my berries going farther into the forest at some point. I suddenly realized that I was lost. It was getting dark, and suddenly I was very scared. I turned my head in the direction of the mushroom picket, and horror seized me, not giving me the opportunity to move. I saw who was sticking out from under the coat. Closing my ears, I began to remember the prayers I have ever had. Something crunched around me, where there was a terrible roar. It seemed to last forever. When everything went quiet, I couldn't for a long time. I couldn't bring myself to open my ears for a long time. But when I did, I saw that there was no one next to me. Nothing seemed to have happened, only my basket was still empty. In the evening I went out to the village. Lights were on in every house. Women were crying, and men were running to the river. As my father told me later, I was gone for more than a day and everyone thought I had drowned. I was severely punished, but to the joy of my mother and grandmother, I did not miss a single service in the church anymore. The Dark and Lonely Roads is a scary story about a young boy who imagines there is a hideous monster lurking in the darkness in a lonely some place in his neighborhood. Every night you sit here in the comfort and safety of your home, but you have no idea of what is going on outside in the darkness. Not far from your home, there is a dark and lonely place. You might not know about it, but it's where, all over the country, in small towns and cities, where I also money of was a dark and lonely place. When I was a young boy, living in a small town, Johnny Craig lived across the street from me. I was friends with his big brother. He was just a baby when I saw him growing up, but I never paid much attention to him. Sometimes in the evening, my mother would send me out to the local store to buy a carton of milk or a bed of sugar. On the way to shop, I had to pass along dark stretch of road. During the day, it was just a shanty place, lined with old, carved trees and vacant lots where nothing had been built and nothing was ever going to be built. I was never afraid or feared by day, but at night it was a defeating place, a lonesome place, a place of darkness and strangeness, a place of terror and fear, very where no houses nearby, no street lights. It was pitch black as black could be, dark as the deepest night, with tall trees blocked out the moon and the stars, casting their long shadows across the road. Whenever you had to go that way, you walked slower and slow. It was like stepping into a dark tunnel. Behind you were these lights of the houses, the sound of cars and people walking along the sidewalk. Ahead of you, there was just a long, lonely stretch of darkness, in which anything could be lurking, anything at all. Every time I had to pass that place at night, I would dread it. I kept hoping somebody would come along, so I wouldn't have to walk alone. But nobody ever came. As I walked along the dark stretch of road, I would keep my eyes fixed on the terrace, half expecting to see something for somebody lurking there in the darkness. Perhaps it was the bogeyman. My mother had often told me about the bogeyman and how he waited in dark place for boys and girls who strayed from the patch. Perhaps it was a child predator. My mother had also warned me about other men who tried to lure children with the promise of candy and puppy dogs. Perhaps it was something worse. Out of the corner of my eye, I would catch glimpses of misshapen figures crouching there in the pitch black, waiting for the moment when the world burst forth and pounce on me. When in what silent and isolated area, we will begin tearing me and rending me and doing unspeakable things to me and nobody world ever see me again. I am not so right expected to see lurking in the lonely place at night. My imagination always got the better of me. In my mind, it was a hideous creature somewhere between animal and man. It had long, spindly limbs and huge, sharp claws. It had with slimy skin and ears was burning like fire. I imagined it hiding in the branches of those old trees, dropping down without a sound of and stalking the angry boys and girls who passed along the dark and lonely road at night. One night it almost got me. I was walking down the lonely road and all of a sudden, where there wasn't any light up ahead, white swinging now it was coming. I could just feel it waiting where there is darkness. I started running, desperate to get away, but I could feel it behind me. It was going on me. I could feel its breath on the back of my neck. I ran as fast as I could. I ran until I thought my head would burst. It almost had me in its clutches, but I managed to get away. When I got back to the safety of my house, I looked at myself in the mirror, and where it was a long, jagged rip on the back of my shirt, as if a sharp claws had tried to grab me and just missed my body, grabbed me and just missed maybe an inch. What scarred me real bad, and afterwards, I had it going down that lonely road more than ever. Some night I won't come back, I warned my mother. She just lounged and told me not to be silly. There is something out there in the dark, I told her. There in the dark what isn't very in the light. She assured me, what do adults know about the world? Grown up think we know anything. The place where we trust in what we read, but we only read what is reported in newspapers and on TV. We drive around in their cars and never have to walk anywhere at night. They don't know what goes on out there in the dark, in the wretched, lonely places where no light at the chance on the darkness hangs like a cold way ground and no bird ever sings. I knew the world believed me, I knew where it was nothing. I could say to convey them that something or someone lived down here, among the trees on that dark and lonely stretch of road. As I grew older, I gradually forgot about the lonely road. I got taller. I went to King's School. I started playing football, I learning to drive, and I started dating girls. The years passed by, and somehow I forgot about the wing that lurked there in the darkness. The memory of it still remained in a distant corner of my mind. But it was a memory locked away in childhood. The years passed by, but I never thought about the other kids who had to walk down the dark and lonely road at night. 3 days ago, Johnny Craig went missing. He lived across the street from me. I was friends with his big brother. He was just a baby when. I saw him growing up, but I never paid much attention to him. Not until we went missing. They found him in the trees on the dark and lonely stretch of road. His body was torn and ripped and scratched, almost beyond recognition. The police said he had been mauled by some kind of animal. The moment I heard about it, I knew what happened. Johnny Craig had been murdered by the thing my childhood fears had created. The thing I had conjured up in my imagination. I had left it on the dark and lonely stretch of road. I had left and waited to wait for some scary little boy who happened to be walking home one dark night. A little boy we could run as fast as he could run. Afterward, we town cut down the trees, we put up streetlights. What stretch of road isn't dark and lonely anymore. We think what lurking, where is it gone now? It's gone somewhere else, where the people aren't suspecting. To some other small town. A small town like yours, where we wait, we'll wait again. Just as it did here, and we'll wait for some other Christianate little boy or girl to come along. It's only a matter of time. One day, I had a dream in which I was climbing a mountain at night. And suddenly, I saw a terrible house with broken windows. And it was also old and abandoned. I decided to go where to spend the night were the elements. At first, it was as if someone knocked on my room. I was very scared. What if there was a ghost? And I went to open the door to make sure what no one was there. And what it was just my imagination. I opened the door. I see there is no one. And when this began to happen, bloody footprints began to stomp towards me from nowhere, strangely. I thought it was a vision, like with a door. When in general, evil spirits began to crawl out from under my bed. Ghosts, vampires. I was scared and didn't come there in my dreams anymore, because I was almost killed there.